The Travel Wins podcast today is with Andrew Howard. Andrew is the communications manager at the National Football League, also known as the NFL. He has worked for the NFL for the past 8 years, moving his way up the ladder with dedication and hard work. Andrew travels as an on-location NFL Network PR representative at Thursday night football games, the Super Bowl, NFL Scouting Combine, NFL Draft, and other NFL events. Getting to travel with the NFL has allowed him to visit various cities, including Indianapolis, New York, Dallas, and the upcoming Nashville Draft. Andrew gave some great insight on how he was successful in pursuing a job in the sports industry and being flexible in his occupational goals. I very much appreciate Andrew giving me some time to chat, and he shared his views on seeing the sights while on his work trips. Here's my podcast with Andrew Howard.
Hey, on my Travel Wins podcast today is Andrew Howard. How are you doing today, Andrew?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Do you go by Andrew or Andy?
Andrew is good.
Okay. I know some people are particular about shortening their names.
No, all good. There are a few people who call me Andy, but growing up and more often than not, it's just Andrew.
Perfect. Okay. Hey, Andrew is the communications manager at the National Football League, also known as the NFL. How's that job going for you?
It's going well. I've been with the league for almost 8 years now.
Yeah.
And it's gone by fast. It's I always loved football. I always loved sports, and knew that after I realized that I wouldn't be able to play it professionally, probably I wanted to find really any way that I could still be involved in it on a day-to-day basis. And so having this opportunity and have been lucky to be with the NFL for as long as I have, very fortunate to be able to do what I do.
I think one thing that's interesting, a lot of people think of the NFL as the football season,
mm-hmm.
but the actual league end of it is 24/7, 365.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah,
Certainly. It's turned into basically a year-round league. Us here at the league, we refer to, there's 2 seasons. There's the playing season and the non-playing season.
Right.
So the non-playing season is still, a season and still has a lot to do. I have people who come up to me and say like, oh, once the Super Bowl ends, you must be, not busy at all. And there are times where I could argue during the non-playing season, I'm just as busy, if not more busy, with what I have to do, just because, again, it has become a year-round sport, and it requires a lot of attention, and there's a lot of things to do, which is good. I like being able to be kept busy.
Well, yeah. It's interesting because I remember when my dad was growing up. My dad grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and even back then, the football players would get off-season jobs, non-playing season jobs. They'd be insurance salesmen, or they'd be working at different jobs because it wasn't a year-round thing. But even for players, it's a year-round thing now as well.
Certainly, yeah. No, I primarily what I do is I work a lot with former players, and just getting their thoughts on it, and hearing stories from them about when they were players, the amount of attention and work they put in the off season and in that non-playing season just to get ready for the season is quite remarkable.
Yeah. How much traveling do you do with the league?
As maybe I alluded to, with the earlier question, is most of the travel I do actually happens in that non-playing season. I even though it is still the season, I include Super Bowl into that. So if I'm to talk about, kind of starting at Super Bowl, I travel to wherever the Super Bowl is every year. I've been to the past 7 of them, and we, I usually get in there the Saturday before the game, so spending a week in that city, and which is great. It's allowed me to see different parts of the country for an extended period of time. I mean, when you're there for a week, you really are immersed into that city, and have to find yourself your way around and where you're going. Especially on a week like Super Bowl, which there's so many things going on, and it's spread throughout the entire city. It really allows me, a chance to get a feel for that city. After that, I'll go to the NFL Scouting Combine, which is in Indianapolis every year, and that's another week-long trip. So I've been to Indianapolis for, a good amount and stayed there a good amount. And then draft. Always have to travel for the draft, and when I started, it was always New York.
Yeah.
But in the last few years, they've bounced it around to a couple different places, and so last year it was in Dallas. This year, technically, so this upcoming draft next year will be in Nashville. So that's another unique opportunity. The fact that they've moved it around quite a bit. You get to. I always kind of think of it as I've done this event before. I've done the draft multiple times before, but
right.
because they keep changing the city, it's like a whole new event all over again. So that brings about some excitement and uniqueness to that. And then, during the season, I'll travel to a couple of Thursday night football games, primarily just based on matchup. If it's an exclusive game to NFL Network, if we have a certain relevant interest that we want to do outside of the game in a particular city, I'll travel for that. And then, other than that, it's as far as work-wise is concerned, miscellaneous trips here and there. The league offices are in New York. I'm based out here in Los Angeles, so traveling to New York a couple times to visit the league office, work out of there, interface with people there, as well as other events that we might do throughout the year.
Do you find do you enjoy the travel part of it? It sounds like you do, because you're getting to experience the different cities that you visit.
Certainly. Growing up, I traveled a lot with my family. I was very fortunate to go on a number of trips, and was very fortunate to be able to see not only just the United States, but other international cities and countries as well. And so I always had that, that experience growing up, always had that itch to, want to get around and see different places, and to be able to do that for the league and my work, and to get to go to different stadiums, get to go to different cities, get to go to, different events and be a part of those events is certainly something that is appealing to me. As great as my job is here in the office at the desk, it is nice to get around once in a while and get outside of that frame of just being in the office.
Well, I know, looking up some of your background, I mean, it's not like you just started at the league. And, you definitely put in your work with different teams and different workloads to get to where you're at now. I'm sure a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, no, it's, again, feel fortunate for the opportunities that I've been given and the work that I was able to put in and continue to put in. That's certainly something as well, where it's like, even though I feel, I'm grateful to have the job that I have and to be in the position that I'm in and to have done what I've done, still having that, desire to work as hard as I can and to put in extra work and to do as much as I can, not only for this job and my own sake, but to constantly improve and find ways to get better is certainly something that, I enjoy doing and I enjoy looking at.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't travel a whole bunch, but I mean, you definitely, when you're gone for a week, how do you balance kind of, with your friends and your family and all that? I mean, I don't know if you have a significant other, but,
I
being
do.
gone for a week.
Yeah, no, it's certainly, being gone for a week and being in a different place could be challenging. But thankfully, my girlfriend is very supportive and understanding of the job and what it requires, and it is happy for me as well to be able to have these experiences, but making sure that even though I'm away outside of where I live, making sure that even though I'm not there physically, I'm still there emotionally and mentally, and being able to keep tabs and to keep in contact. And just because I'm physically not there, being able to show that I can mentally and emotionally be there, whether that be talking on the phone, texting, FaceTime is great, things like that, where it's important to keep that aspect of my life, make sure that doesn't falter or be hindered by the fact that I'm not there all the time.
Yeah, that's the beauty of technology now. I mean, when I started, long distance phone calls were extra money. There were no cell phones. There was no texting. There was no FaceTime. So being on the road, that you'd make one phone call, you wouldn't be on too long because you had to get off because it was $2.50 a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, no, technology certainly provides, great access to be able to keep in contact, which I'm very thankful for.
Well, when you go to like Indianapolis and you're there a week a year, do you go on any apps to find restaurants? Do you try and find anything? Because you're going to Nashville. Nashville's a great town.
Certainly. Yeah, no, as it relates to Indianapolis, what was, what I feel is kind of unique about that is two things. One, the Combine is there every year. And, Indianapolis is such a walkable city in terms of, the hotel that we stay at is there, the stadium's right there in downtown, and really everything that we do is right there in downtown. And so, having gone for how many years it is and to go there every single year, you know the places. And so by this time it's kind of like, all right, well, I know where I'm going to dinner on one night and there's the next night and here's what to do. But what was unique about Indianapolis as well is the year that I really started traveling on location for things was the year that the Super Bowl was in Indianapolis. So that was really my first big trip in my job. And so being there for a week, I had never been to the city before, and I had never been to a Super Bowl before, so it was a great experience in terms of figuring out the city and what to do and how a week looks. And then about a month later, I was back there for my first Combine, so really got to know the city pretty well in that first month. And having gone there every year now, again for probably the past 7 years, certainly you get to know those places that you want to go to. But as you mentioned with a new city, certainly like to keep knowledgeable of what to do, and especially like restaurants. So, using Yelp, using, people that maybe have posted things on Instagram or other social media platforms, researching those and thinking like, oh, is it close enough to my hotel to walk, or do I have to Uber or get something? So certainly utilize those options, before we head out.
That's awesome. You were just in Dallas for the draft there. That's such a big, sprawling area as well.
It certainly is. And, what was, unique about that trip is the fact that basically we were all, our hotel was in downtown Dallas, but the draft itself was at the Cowboy Stadium, which is in Arlington, which is probably about 20, luckily, on a good day, maybe about 20, 25 minutes away from downtown.
Yeah.
And so kind of got, a little bit of both, two trips in one. You got to explore downtown Dallas, which I had been to once previously, not for a very extended period of time, just very briefly. So got to see areas of that, more, and then got to, there really isn't too much around the stadium. It's a huge stadium, just to be around there and to see how big it is and to be inside of it was certainly something that was in a way awe-inspiring.
Well, that's cool. You're not a young guy, but you're relatively young. Yeah, 8 years with the league, and then you worked with the Warriors, and you worked with up in San Jose for the Shockers, I think.
The Earthquakes.
The Earthquakes, that same thing.
Yeah.
What made you be successful in moving on from going, hey, I'm going to be an intern for this company, and then I'm going to move here, and then things just kind of worked out, obviously, but it's hard work. What made you successful?
Yeah, I'd like to think that it was, a little bit of, my hard work, work ethic, wanting to get things done and completed in high quality, and making sure I put, all my energy into what I was doing, as well as taking, not really like taking advantage of opportunities, but making the most of opportunities and relationships that were, placed ahead of me. When I was in college, I thought I wanted to be a sports writer. That was, what I thought I wanted to do. And, so when I was in school, I worked for the student newspaper, worked as an assistant sports editor, covered the football and men's basketball and baseball teams. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. I didn't even know that my current job right now in communications, media relations, I didn't know really that existed at all until I got into college. And they, first, week on the job at the newspaper, they tell you like, okay, you're covering this team, and the best way to cover it is to, communicate with the sports information director. And so, that was my first introduction to it. And once I was introduced to that, I realized that a family friend of mine that I had grown up with his son. His son and I were the same age, and had played soccer together, went to school together. He was the sports information director for football at USC. And so whenever UCLA played at USC in football or men's basketball, he and I would talk and connect. And so he knew eventually that this was actually the path that I wanted to take. I felt like I wanted to, become, get into the communication side, get into the media relations side, because I felt like it better fit my personality, better fit my skill set. Plus, that was a way for me to continue to be involved in the sports industry and to really feel like I was part of a team. And that really enticed me about the job. And so, when I graduated, I was able to get an internship with the Earthquakes. I just applied for it online, and they thought I could do the job. And so I went up there and worked for them for 5 months. Volunteered for the Warriors, and that turned into a game night position for them. And then, the reason I got my job here at the network, or at the league, I should say, is because that same contact that I knew from USC knew the person in charge of the department here at that time from USC, and encouraged me to apply for it, and vouched for me. And so that's why I say, making the most out of connections and opportunities. Not everyone can say that they have someone from their past that they grew up with that would, have them, get them into the industry. Fortunately, I was able to have that, but I like to think that, just because that was given to me, I was able to go beyond that and to stand above that, and to really make the most of that.
Well, yeah, obviously you don't work at the NFL for 8 years and get promoted because you knew somebody,
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I try and tell my daughter's just recently graduated college, and I tell them the same thing. Just because this person gets in the job or you don't get the job, you got to perform.
Certainly.
That's kind of the bottom line as far as success. You just got to work hard.
Certainly.
Do you ever go back and mentor, either at UCLA or even your high school, or anybody that's considering journalism or communications? Do you ever mentor them?
I haven't physically gone back and taught a class or spoke at a class, but really what I try and do is something that I found very valuable when I was starting my career, and that's just to be available and open for people to ask me questions. What really helped me, and still to this day still helps me, is reaching out to people that have been involved in the industry for a long time and speaking with them on the phone or trading emails back and forth about, what was their career path, how did they go about their jobs, what are unique challenges that face your job or currently or in the past, just to get, advice and to, get an broader understanding of the industry, and also to build a relationship. And so since that was very helpful to me, I always try and reciprocate that. So, if I have, college students, people who just graduated college, people who are starting out their careers who reach out to me and ask like, hey, do you have, time to talk with me about it? I always try and make time and be sure to do that, because it was so beneficial and helpful for me when I was growing up. That I really want to be able to impart that as well.
And just by doing my podcast, I truly appreciate it, because that's kind of the message I'm trying to get out as well. People that travel, and also, how do they end up where they're at? And I'm trying to think back. I don't think I've talked to anybody that said, I started here and I'm still there. And that's what I always wanted to do. There's always elbows in the river.
Certainly, and I always say that it's good to be open to new opportunities, and not to just be pigeonholed into one thing. I always say that that's good, and then realize like, well, I really only had this job. This is really my only permanent, professional job I've ever had. But certainly want to, be able to impart that feeling as well.
Yeah, but like I said, you moved up the chain. You didn't start as the communications manager.
Correct.
So, whereas you didn't change companies, you obviously, with hard work, just kept moving up, and you are where you are now. So that's awesome.
Certainly.
Is there anything you'd like to plug for the league, or is there anything you want them to keep an eye out for you?
No, I mean, I just, it's been a good season so far. We're about midway through, and for me personally, I'm an Eagles fan, and so last year, especially near the end, was very special to me, and it's very exciting. This year hasn't gone quite, as smoothly as last year did, but there's still time to turn that around. But overall, it's been a great season for us, and hopefully we finish out strong here in the second half.
But it's funny you said you're an Eagles fan. I had Dennis Franks on my podcast, and he was teammates and roommates with Vince Papale from the Invincible movie. Mm-hmm. And it was just awesome talking to him about that era, because that's when I was a kid, was when he was playing and all that. So
certainly. Yeah, no, it was I love that movie. It's a great movie, and have been an Eagles fan my entire life. And so last year was the culmination of a lot of years, and it was certainly special to see.
Well, I appreciate the time. I'll let you get back to work.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks again, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, Andrew. Bye-bye.